Snow-covered landscapes can be breathtakingly beautiful, but beneath the serene white blanket often lies an ominous chill. Tonight, we delve into 3 disturbing true snow horror stories, encounters that will have you questioning the stillness of winter and the safety of your next snowy adventure. If you love creepy tales, chilling encounters, and terrifyingly true stories, you're in for a frosty fright. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more eerie tales and haunted happenings. Let's dive into these bone-chilling accounts, if you dare. This story is about Lost in the Blizzard. It was a frigid January night when Ben, an avid outdoorsman, decided to drive to his cabin deep in the Montana wilderness. A heavy snowfall had turned the roads into treacherous paths, but Ben was confident in his trusty SUV. The drive started uneventfully, with the radio crackling soft tunes and snowflakes gently hitting the windshield. As the hours wore on, the snowfall became relentless. Visibility dwindled to almost nothing. Ben's GPS, his lifeline, suddenly glitched, the screen freezing before blinking off completely. Now relying on memory and instinct, Ben continued through the desolate whiteout. The first sign that something was wrong came when he noticed the same broken signpost he had passed an hour earlier. He had been driving in circles. The second sign was more chilling, a dark figure standing motionless by the side of the road, barely visible through the swirling snow. Ben slowed down, his heart pounding. Was it a stranded traveler? He rolled down his window to offer help, but the figure didn't move. It stood unnaturally still, its face obscured by a hood. "Hey, you okay?" Ben shouted. No response. A sudden wave of unease washed over him, and he drove off, the figure disappearing into the blizzard behind him. But it wasn't over. Minutes later, Ben saw footprints in the snow, leading straight down the center of the road. They shouldn't have been there. No one could survive out here on foot. Panic set in as he realized the prints weren't behind him, they were ahead, as if the figure had somehow moved faster than his vehicle. When Ben stopped to get his bearings, the engine sputtered and died. The silence was deafening, broken only by the howling wind. Suddenly, a loud knock on the back window made him jump. Spinning around, he saw the same dark figure, its face now pressed against the glass. Its breath left a frosty imprint as it whispered, "You can't leave." Ben scrambled to restart the engine, the figure disappearing as the vehicle roared back to life. He drove for hours, not caring which direction he went, until the blizzard finally let up. When he reached the nearest town, a local gas station attendant listened to his story with a pale face. "You're lucky you got out," the man said. "People who see him usually don't." Ben couldn't shake the chilling whispers that seemed to follow him as he returned to civilization. The faint sound of mocking laughter lingered in his mind, and the image of those ghostly shadows was burned into his memory. That single haunting tale made him vow never to return to the Montana wilderness. The figure wasn't just a ghostly spirit, it felt alive, feeding on his terror. Weeks later, Ben began seeing shadowy figures outside his suburban home whenever it snowed. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia. But one night, he awoke to the sound of something scratching at his window. Pulling back the curtains, he was greeted by frost-covered glass spelling out the same haunting words, "You can't leave." Even now, Ben swears the unseen eyes of the snow still watch him. Whether it's a fleeting shadow on his driveway or the distant sound of crunching snow, he knows he's never truly alone. That ghostly horror has become a permanent part of his life, a chilling scare he can never escape. If this story left you gripping your seat, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more terrifyingly true encounters. Remember, chilling tales, creepy stories, and haunted whispers aren't just fiction. Sometimes, they're true scary horror stories waiting to find you. Stay safe out there, especially when snow blankets the ground, hiding the unseen horrors beneath. This story is about the frozen asylum. Lila and her friends were thrill seekers, always looking for new haunted spots to explore. When they heard about an abandoned asylum buried deep in a snow-laden forest, they couldn't resist. The asylum had been shut down decades ago after a mysterious fire claimed the lives of several patients and staff. The group packed their gear and set out one late December night. After a long hike through the snow, they reached the crumbling building. Its windows were shattered, the roof caved in places, and the air seemed unnaturally cold, even for winter. Inside, the silence was oppressive. Their footsteps echoed against the frost-covered walls, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a scream in the stillness. As they explored, strange things began to happen. Doors slammed shut without warning, their flashlights flickered, and faint whispers echoed through the halls. Lila's friend, Max, swore he saw a figure darting into one of the rooms. They followed, but the room was empty, except for a single wheelchair sitting in the corner. It was untouched, but the snow beneath it showed faint footprints leading out of the room. The group decided it was time to leave, but as they retraced their steps, they realized the footprints they had made earlier were gone, replaced by a set of unfamiliar prints leading further into the asylum. Panic set in as the whispers grew louder, forming words they couldn't understand. Suddenly, the temperature dropped even further, and their flashlights went out completely. In the pitch darkness, Lila felt a cold hand graze her shoulder. She screamed, and the group bolted for the exit, stumbling through the snow. When they reached their car, the frost on the windshield formed words, "Come back." Weeks later, Lila began to experience nightmares of the asylum, waking up to find frost on her bedroom windows and faint whispers echoing in her ears. Her friends reported similar experiences, as if the asylum had marked them, its haunting horrors following them into the real world. But the terror didn't stop there. Lila started to notice ghostly shadows flickering in the corners of her room. At first, she thought it was just her imagination. But one night, as she lay in bed, she saw a figure standing at the foot of her bed, a faint, translucent shape with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. The figure didn't move, but its haunting whispers filled the room, repeating a single phrase, "You belong to us now." Max's experiences were no less horrifying. One evening, he returned home to find his living room filled with the scent of burning wood, reminiscent of the asylum fire. He tried to brush it off, but when he looked in his mirror, he saw faces, ghostly spirits staring back at him, their mouths open in silent screams. The mocking laughter that followed seemed to echo throughout his home, growing louder until he fled the house in terror. Despite the group's attempts to forget the asylum, it became clear they were forever tied to its chilling scares. One day, Lila received a photograph in the mail. It was of the asylum's interior, taken from an angle they'd never seen, but she recognized the wheelchair. At the bottom of the picture was a single line scrawled in jagged handwriting, "We never left." Max reported another strange event months later. He awoke in the middle of the night to find frost spreading across his walls in erratic patterns. It wasn't the cold that scared him, it was the unmistakable shape of skeletal hands reaching toward him. The faint whispers became screams, an overwhelming cacophony of ghostly horrors that drove him out of the house. When he returned, the frost was gone, but the unsettling silence in the air felt even worse. To this day, the group remains haunted by what they experienced. Lila avoids looking out her windows during snowstorms, afraid of what unseen eyes might be staring back. The asylum's ghostly spirit clings to them, weaving its way into every snowy night and every shadowy corner. They have become part of a chilling tale, a haunted story they can never escape. If this terrifyingly true encounter sent shivers down your spine, like, subscribe, and share for more chilling tales and creepy stories. Remember, true scary horror stories and ghostly shadows are more than just chilling accounts, they're haunting whispers that follow you into the night. Stay safe, and never underestimate what lies hidden in the snow. This story is about the snowplow. David was a night shift worker in a small Alaskan town. One winter evening, he stayed late to finish a project. By the time he left, the roads were buried under fresh snowfall. As he drove home, his only company was the steady rhythm of his windshield wipers. Ahead, David saw a snowplow clearing the road. Relieved, he slowed down to follow at a safe distance. But something about the plow felt wrong. It moved erratically, its lights flickering in and out. David honked to signal the driver, but the plow didn't respond. Instead, it sped up, weaving dangerously. Determined to pass, David accelerated. As he pulled alongside, he glanced at the driver's seat, and froze. The cab was empty. David's car spun out of control, sliding into a snowbank. When he looked up, the plow was gone, its tracks disappearing into the untouched snow. Shaken, David managed to get back on the road and drive home. The next day, he mentioned the incident to a coworker, who looked horrified. "There hasn't been a plow on that route for years," they said. David later learned of an accident years earlier involving a snowplow driver who lost control and plunged into a ravine. Some say his ghost still roams the roads, trying to finish the job he never completed. Even now, on snowy nights, David sees strange lights in his rearview mirror and hears the distant rumble of a plow blade. But the sightings grew more frequent. One particularly frigid evening, David was driving the same route when his headlights caught a shadowy figure standing in the middle of the road. He swerved to avoid it, narrowly missing the ditch. When he looked back, there was no one there, only a faint trail of footprints leading into the darkness. A wave of cold dread washed over him as he realized the footprints weren't heading away from the road, they were coming toward him. Soon, David began hearing faint whispers whenever he drove in the snow. They were barely audible over the hum of his engine, but they felt close, like someone was sitting in the passenger seat. The whispers grew louder the closer he got to the site of the snowplow accident, turning into mocking laughter that echoed in his ears. He once stopped his car to check if someone was hiding in the back seat, but the moment he opened the door, the whispers stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that sent chills down his spine. One night, David decided to confront his fears. Armed with a flashlight, he stopped near the ravine where the accident had occurred. The snow was undisturbed, the forest eerily silent. As he stood by the edge, he heard the unmistakable sound of a plow blade scraping against the road. Turning back, he saw the ghostly shadows of headlights in the distance, growing brighter as they approached. But the closer they came, the more unnatural they seemed, the lights flickered like dying flames, and the shadow of the plow was distorted, stretching and twisting like a nightmare. Terrified, David fled back to his car, but it wouldn't start. The engine sputtered uselessly as the lights drew nearer. In the frosted window, a message slowly formed, written by unseen fingers, "Still working." David screamed, and in that moment, the lights vanished, leaving only the haunting whispers of the wind. To this day, David avoids that road, but the ghostly spirit of the snowplow seems to have followed him. On snowy nights, he hears the faint rumble of the blade in his driveway and sees ghostly shadows flickering in his mirrors. He knows he's become part of a terrifying tale, a chilling account of a haunted tale that will never let him go. If this ghost story sent shivers down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more terrifyingly true encounters. Remember, chilling tales and ghostly horrors are more than just creepy stories, they're reminders of the unseen eyes that watch from the dark. Stay safe, and always check your rearview mirror. Snow can be beautiful, but these stories remind us of its darker side. From ghostly figures in the blizzard to haunted asylums and spectral snowplows, winter holds secrets that chill more than the air. If you enjoyed these true snow horror stories, hit the like button, subscribe, and share for more terrifying tales. And remember, on snowy nights, it's not just the cold you should fear. Stay safe out there, and keep your lights on.